Good afternoon, everybody. It's Mike Roybal with IT Colorado. Today is Tuesday, November 12th. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about what is a cybersecurity risk assessment. First of all, like I said, I'd like to introduce myself. I am the owner and founder of IT Colorado. We have been doing business in Colorado since the mid-90s. We focus on cybersecurity and work mostly with CPAs and bookkeepers here in the Northern Colorado area. This generalized cybersecurity risk assessment overview, it applies to all industries. So, if you have any questions, please leave it in the comments and we'll see if we can get back to you on that. Let's see here. So first of all, excuse me, I'd like to talk about what is a cybersecurity risk assessment, or a CSRA as we call it. What this process is it allows companies to identify, assess, and to prioritize the security risks that lie inside of their network and all of their whole digital infrastructure as a whole. So this covers everything from your data and your business operations to your people and to your endpoints. So think of this as an in-depth diagnostic or a physical for your company's health. It shows where you're vulnerable, where your biggest threats are, and what you need to focus on to protect your company. And CSRAs, they're unique to every organization, adapting to the specific environment and helping to align the security efforts with individual business goals and resources in mind. So why are these CSRAs so essential for business? Let's go through a few reasons. Number one, these cybersecurity risk assessments, they help prioritize the resources where they are needed most. We focus our time and our money and the manpower on the areas with the highest risk. Typically, this ends up being the servers and the workstations and protecting the end user from falling prey to cyber attacks. Secondly, they reveal what threats that the organization is exposed to, whether they are from external attackers, internal errors, or any other sources that are out there. Thirdly, and one of the biggest ones in today's world, is compliance. Many industries are required to comply with certain things like HIPAA or PCI. In Colorado, we are dealing with the Colorado Protection Act. The CPAs and bookkeepers, they are being held responsible through the FTC safeguards. CPAs in particular are being held responsible by the IRS. They are required to have a written information security plan, or a WISP. And then number four, a CSRA helps prevent data breaches. These data breaches can severely damage a company's reputation and the trust between you and your clients. And this is really the number one reason why we're doing what we're doing, is we want to keep your business intact. We want to protect the data that is going on, that is being protected behind the scenes. And just make sure everybody is safe. We can't guarantee against every single cyber attack out there, but we can definitely put up some big walls, and we can make it harder and harder for them to get through. So let's talk about the first step in the cybersecurity risk assessment, and this is asset identification. So this is really about understanding what assets you have that need to be protected. This can include the data. This can include the hardware, meaning your servers and your workstations, as well as the software that you're using. Software such as Windows 7 is already out of date, and Windows 10 will be out of date soon. And then, of course, we're protecting the people. How are people protecting and storing their passwords? What kind of machines are they connecting from? Are they running Windows Pro? Are they set up for success by using the business versions and the properly licensed software packages that they should be using? And these assets, they can be physical, like laptops and servers, or digital, like databases and software applications. I would also like to point out that, cloud software, it's still an asset. Just because it's in the cloud doesn't necessarily make it any more secure. You're just utilizing a server that's on somebody else's network, and to some extent is under somebody else's purview. In the end, it's your business, it's your data, you're responsible. So we look at everything that could be a target for a cyber attack. And without knowing exactly what you have, we really can't effectively diagnose or prioritize what to protect. So this asset identification, it forms the foundation of the risk assessment because it tells us exactly what is at risk inside of your network. Next up is threat identification. And here we really look at anything that could harm the identified assets. Threats come in many, many forms. Cyber criminals like to launch phishing attacks, which is one of the most common forms. And they get through using what they call a business email compromise. And that's where a lot of the damage is done. There's also employees that are accidentally exposing data or sharing files that they shouldn't be sharing outside of the network. And of course, there are natural disasters that can damage equipment and damage local on-site data backups. So understanding that these types of threats that your organization might face is very, very crucial. We have to take everything into account. And by anticipating these threats, we can design a cybersecurity plan that's proactive rather than reactive. Once these threats are identified, it's time to look inward and to identify any vulnerabilities that these threats could exploit. Vulnerabilities are the weak spots in your organization's defenses. So like outdated software or operating systems that haven't been patched recently, poor password practices, unencrypted sensitive data. All of these things are very, very crucial to get under control. And this stage is crucial because it's where we get insight into exactly where an attack could occur, helping us design defenses that specifically address these vulnerabilities. So with these threats and the vulnerabilities mapped out, the next step is risk analysis. Here we determine the likelihood that each threat could successfully exploit a vulnerability in your system and what that impact would be if it happened. So think of it like assigning each risk a score based on how severe and probable it is. This step helps us to see which risks are most serious, giving us a clear sense of where to focus our attention. So after analyzing the risks, we move on to risk prioritization. And this is different for every single organization. Not all risks are equal. This stage involves ranking each identified risk by its overall severity and the likelihood of it occurring. So this prioritization allows us to focus resources on the highest priority risks first. Oftentimes this is upgrading a server or replacing a firewall, removing passwords from the browser. So by creating an effective, cost-efficient security plan, we can help your business be set up for success. So in other words, it helps companies focus on what's most important first, ensuring that the most significant risks are addressed promptly. With all of the prioritized risks identified, it's time for risk mitigation. And this is where we develop strategies to address and reduce the risks. These strategies can take many forms, such as implementing multi-factor authentication, one of the first things that we help clients implement. Also using data encryption or training employees on best security practices, scanning email for malware and viruses and phishing attempts before they reach your inbox. Our goal here is to lower the likelihood of these risks occurring and reducing their potential impact on your business if they do. So by putting these defenses in place, we're making sure that the company is prepared as possible for potential threats. And the last key part of any cybersecurity risk assessment is the continuous monitoring and review. Cyber threats evolve very, very fast, and new risks can emerge at any time. So to stay secure, companies need to regularly revisit their risk assessment, updating it as necessary to account for any new technologies, any shifting threats, and any organizational changes. And by keeping the risk assessment up to date, businesses can adapt their cybersecurity approach to stay one step of emerging threats. So I do appreciate you joining us. I hope you got a little bit more information about what we do with our cybersecurity risk assessment. Many times we come across small businesses who are not doing much at all for security purposes. We're coming across endpoints that all they have is basic antivirus. These antivirus does not protect against advanced threats that happen in the memory space or threats that happen from a software package that you installed that's taking advantage of something else. Data backups. We're finding that a lot of companies, their only data backup is through something like Dropbox or OneDrive. These are not data backup tools. They are data synchronization tools. So when something happens to that data, it gets synchronized across all the places that you tell it to synchronize to. Or backups that are local and you experience something like a flood Or a couple years ago, we had a client who had a car drive through the front of their building, pretty much hit every single computer in the place. And luckily we had backups in place. The computer was okay. It did have to be replaced, but we were able to copy that data and move it over to a new machine. So disasters can really hamper what a small business thinks they are doing for data security. And of course, all of the cloud platforms out there now, everything needs to be set up with MFA. Without multi-factor authentication, all it takes is a hacker with a username and a password that could have been, you know, grabbed from another data breach, and they can get into your system. So, if you would like to set up some time and talk with me or talk to my team, please go to itcolorado.com/book a call, and you can schedule a 20-minute session, and we can talk about how we might be able to help you, or what things you might be able to do on your own to get started. Thanks again. Appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.